I see why this is edge thinking, but the religious practices are already on the edge of our society anyway, right? He said this is like Williamsburg, Brooklyn, like very traditional.
The first thing that we insist is that the world should step out of its box where they are constantly referring to this as a conflict of religions between Judaism and Islam. It's a conflict between Jewish people and Arabs because there's an ingrained hate. This is repulsive and it's patently false. We live together, as I showed you, Jews and Arabs and Muslims for hundreds, not hundreds, they lived with Arabs for thousands of years, but with Islam, there's a little over 1,000 years, we lived in total peace. There is no impediment to coexistence, even though we have a distinctly different religion. The people who oppose the occupation are not opposing the occupation because they don't like Jews. It's not because they're anti-Semitic. They don't like being occupied. I don't know which country would like being occupied. They are right in that. And the rabbis stood in solidarity, and they still are. The tens of thousands of religious communities, we stood together, whether it was in Gaza or whether it is whether it was when they made the Palestinian Authority. The rabbis of our communities stood together. They demonstrated. They stood together, and they were brutally beaten simply because they're saying this is not Jewish. Three issues here. We're not allowed to have a state, even if it would be an uninhabited land since the destruction of the temple 2,000 years ago. We're not allowed to steal or kill. And so to create this state that the Zionists want their national home by abusing, by confiscating the lands of others, by oppressing them and waving the Bible as a deed to the land, that is criminal. And the rabbi said no. They pleaded with the United Nations. The chief rabbi of Palestine, as I said, we furthermore wish to express. Just bear with me a second. Just one second.
I agree with everything you said.
Excuse me. Let me just. I'll continue because there's a law. We furthermore wish to express our definite opposition to a Jewish state in any part of Palestine. That's the chief rabbi of Palestine, Rabbi Dushinsky, in 1947, the United Nations. And our communities still stand fast to that. So we have to understand that we're not allowed to kill or steal. The response is unfortunately bloodshed. We've had 76 years of blood of the Palestinians and of Jews who they're all dying because there is an unacceptable, a culturally criminal occupation of a land of others. It's unjustified. They want to claim it's because of the Torah. It's not because of the Torah. The rabbinical authorities and the Jewish communities living in Palestine and around the world, the very religious, this is lies. It's not our religion. Our religion is subservience to God, to keep the commandments, not to steal, not to kill. This is a movement of heretics called Theodor Herzl, Ben Gurion. As you see, they are. You can see when they made the state, they didn't even cover their heads. You see the hypocrisy. They're not religious. They came along with a nationalist agenda. This is not acceptable. We plead with the politicians: do not be complacent. Do not assist people murdering other people because they have an agenda, because they have a selfish reason, and their excuses, they claim anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism when we were living together as distinctly different religions in the same courtyards, babysitting each other's children, not only in Jerusalem, but throughout the Arab world. How dare the Zionists accuse and vilify and dehumanize the people of Palestine by saying that they oppose the Jewish people because they're Jewish. Basically, they're pleading with the Kamala, and we're pleading with the Republicans the same. We are pleading with them. Please respect the lives of the people of Palestine. Respect the Jewish religion. You won't dictate to Muslims how the Shiite Islam goes, or Sunni. You will not dictate to the Christian community how their religion should be. You would defer to their priests. The same thing is here. The most religious communities in Jerusalem, the community that was living there for hundreds of years, the community in New York, the most religious community is right across from Manhattan, in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, and there's not one Israeli flag there. This is the people that give, they're most devout, they give their lives for the religion. We pay for private education, we pay for our religious garb, our we are giving our lives for our religion, and yet we do not approve of the state. There's not one Israeli flag. Work. It's obvious. It's not because we are not religious enough. It's because we are religious Jews. We are totally opposed to this criminal occupation that's masquerading in my religion, in Judaism. We plead with the politicians, respect us, respect humanity, respect godliness. God gave you a lofty position. You are gifted by God. Do not abuse this. Save the lives of the people of Gaza. Save the lives of the people of Palestine. Let us free us, just like from apartheid. Let us, which is criminal. Let us free us from an occupation that has no sense, that has no logic, that is simply a selfish, flawed occupation of another people. Save the Jewish people that are being oppressed, that are being beaten and assassinated in the streets of Jerusalem because they simply refuse to stand in support and go to their army and so forth. Yes.
So, as part of your portion of the movement, you're basically saying that the religion is far beyond the state. You don't recognize the state of Israel?
Not I don't. Our religion, Judaism, is a religion, as I mentioned, of 3,000 years. The state of Israel is a transformation to nationalism created by non-religious Jews, Theodor Herzl, Ben-Gurion, Chaim Weizmann, Jabotinsky. This is a purely materialistic nationalist movement of creating a state which they felt convenient to create it in Palestine, because they would be able to tell the world God gave us the land. But it is not acceptable. Judaism forbids us to steal, to kill, or to even create a Jewish homeland since the destruction of the temple. And certainly not to people who were so kind to us. The Muslim and Arab countries took the Jews in by the Crusades, by Inquisitions, and throughout our history, when we were being murdered, we were being tortured. It was the Muslim lands that took us in and we flourished in their lands. It was the Muslims who took us into Palestine, and under Solomon the Great, whatever, they took us in under the Ottoman Empire for already hundreds of years, and we flourished there. How dare the Zionists turn around and accuse them of hating the Jews, and that's the reason why they don't want us occupying their land.
That's what I wanted to ask you about. So trying to
Can I just? I said I will get back to you because bear with me. That's a long interview. I'm here for very short interviews, and bear with me. I'm sorry. I apologize.
What would you say to the parts of the Jewish community that would say that your kind of political sentiments or expressions are a form of self-hatred?
Well, I mean, you simply have to take the time and effort and use the common sense and logic that God blessed every human being with. We are a people of continuance for 3,000 years. We are communities that are very religious, that are God-fearing, living throughout the world, whether it is in England, Canada, here in the United States. The most religious community is in Brooklyn, Williamsburg, Brooklyn, the most large concentration of religious Jews. These are distinguished communities. We are survivors of the Holocaust. My grandparents were killed in Auschwitz. My father escaped when the Nazis came in. Our communities, as I said, practice the religion to its fullest. We don't cut corners. We don't make compromises. We are upholding the religion, and we don't have family planning, so we have an average of 6 or 7 children. We pay for private education. We pay for kosher food. It's all expensive. We give our lives for our religion. This community is the same, is exact as the communities in Jerusalem, in Meah She'arim. We all share one view, that we should not occupy, that we are not a nationalism. So it's not some type of fringe or self-hating Jews. It's the basic Jewish communities that are following in the path as we have for these literally 2,000 years since we're in exile. And the Zionists are a community that changed. They're people who do not keep the 10 Commandments. They openly declare themselves first a democracy. They proudly declare that you don't have to observe the 10 Commandments. You don't have to keep the Sabbath. You can do what you want. It's a free-for-all. calling a country and saying it's a Jewish state, which means it's under the covenant of God. And then you say you don't have to keep the 10 Commandments of keeping Sabbath. So you see the hypocrisy and the lack of logic what we're dealing with. And at the same time, the religious communities are the same around the world. We say we are bound by the laws of the Torah, and the laws of the Torah does not permit us to occupy another people, to kill or steal. And we have to show a gratitude to these people who took us in, embraced us, and gave us a home. The stark difference between Judaism, the religion, and Zionism, this nationalism, is like the difference between the day and night. It's clear in the laws of the Torah that we are 2,000 years. We had a time called the Golden Age of Judaism. We could have bought a piece of land. And if you look in the responses, the writings of the Maimonides, Rambam Maimonides, he's very famous. He wrote about this, a letter to Yemen, it's called. And many of the rabbis, they all wrote that when the people asked them, maybe we should buy a piece of land, they all stated clearly that we have to have patience. God put us into exile with the destruction of the temple, and He warned us that we are not permitted to create a Jewish sovereignty. This is, I'm talking, even if theoretically, if it would have been given to us by the Palestinian people, we would still oppose this because we respect the words of God. It's God's world. He said, we say in our prayers, because of our sins we are in exile, not because we were physically weak. And we don't aspire to take the land back because we don't rebel against God. We may not understand all of God's ways, but the response is not to say, I'm smarter than God and I will do something else and that will bring me a good result. The Zionists wanted to make a state. They should have called it the state of Buddha or something else. Don't use the Star of David. Don't hijack, don't co-opt something that isn't yours for convenience sake, so that they should tell the evangelists, the Christians, support me because God gave us the land, when they all well knew that the rabbis stood in opposition to them.
Is there a specific policy outcome that you're looking for?
Well, we certainly are hoping. We are hoping that Kamala will see will feel. She has feelings, and she is. Talking about that it cannot go on, the massacre in Gaza. She expressed her openness to hearing about the Palestinian people and their suffering and so forth. I hope she's intelligent and so forth. I hope that she may be able to release herself from the pressures of AIPAC and the others. And just like I say, South Africa was maybe unpopular when people went against South Africa and didn't support the apartheid, but eventually, when it changed, then everybody lauds and praises the politicians who stood in opposition to apartheid, to racism. The same will happen here. The day will come when this slaughter, when this injustice, this occupation of another people will stop. It's an insult to logic, to common sense, that they should have a right to ratify a state of the United Nations where the majority of the community was Muslim, the second largest was Christian, and there was a Jewish community. And all three didn't want that a declaration that it should be called the State of Israel, where automatically the other communities that are not Jewish will become second-class citizens, and you're calling for rift and contention and death and bloodshed. The day will come when the world will say that this was wrong. And just like apartheid had to be stopped, this has to be stopped. Bloodshed has to be stopped. Zionists had a free ride for 76 years. They tried the Y Accord, the Camp David Accord, the Oslo Accord, everything they tried, and always with the excuse that the Palestinians are vile, evil, anti-Semitic, and they're villains. How much will the world let the senses be insulted? We have to stand up. And we are standing up as Jews.
Stand up to end the apartheid and the occupation?
We want the people to stand up, and they should say why. When just as a doctor has to diagnose a hemorrhaging wound, what it is, before he prescribes medication, they have to stand up and say, why didn't the Camp Y Accord, why didn't the Camp David Accord, why didn't Oslo? Because they did not diagnose it. I'm telling you, because because exactly, we want them to diagnose the issue and realize that the sole issue, the sole reason that we're having bloodshed is because of Zionism, because of the occupation, not because there's a difference of religion. And if they'll understand and they'll stand up to the truth, they'll accept the fact that, which is simple history, that we live together in the same courtyards, Jews and Muslims, and the only impediment to peace is the occupation, then they'll be able to stand up and start, first of all, a cessation, immediate stop of the death in Gaza, the bombing of Gaza, and bringing them medical aid and so forth. Then we can stand up, and the Palestinian leadership wants a free Palestine. When they say from the river to the sea, they're not saying throw out the Jews. That's the Zionist idiocy.
So what would happen to the Jews? They didn't
What,
throw out the Jews.
what
do
will
they,
happen
do they
is,
seize any
we,
property?
just
Is
as
there-
history, we will be able to, with God's help, to coexist if the Palestinian people will feel that I was in Gaza. I met with the leadership in Gaza. I met with the leadership, everyone. We were in Egypt. We were in Lebanon. We met with all the leaders. They all, as one, say we have no problem of coexistence with Jews. Yes, there are tens of thousands, maybe, who committed atrocities through all these years. Now, they're being supported in Israel by billions of dollars every year. If the people who feel unsafe because they've committed crimes, they should be judged by. But besides being judged, then they should be relocated to America, to Canada, to England. It's big enough to take 10,000 people.
You're saying any Israeli who wants to
should be helped to
out,
relocate in another place. We don't have to keep on supporting a war and bombing of a people because you feel uncomfortable because of crimes you committed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that summarizes that sentiment. It's like a form of religious conservatism, but it also thinks the dissolution of the state of Israel is the most appropriate way to proceed. And then it elevates the religiosity of Judaism above the state, but it's almost like it's reacting to the nationalism where it's like, what's wrong with other people in the community, in the Jewish community, that have given their lives to the nation and not to the religion. But the policies don't work very well. They don't like Zionism. They think it takes away from their religious interests, and it paints a bad picture on the Jewish community. But I see why this is edge thinking. But the religious practices are already on the edge of our society anyway, right? He said this is like Williamsburg, Brooklyn, very traditional